everybody. I realized at the last minute that I might be tilted. Okay, no, I'm not. I'm not tilted. I haven't been playing Overwatch, and also my minicam, or my webcam is not tilted. So I am not tilted. It is the morning. I'm, in fact, the opposite of tilted. I'm enthusiastic and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, or I would be if I had a tail. So, hi, good morning. And since we're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, we're going to paint something that's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're going to paint Spirit Beast. I've been wanting to paint Spirit Beast for a long time. Good morning, Margaret. Yes, ooh, Spirit Beast, indeed. Casmania, good morning. Numbat and Daffodweir. And D. Clearman and Cornico. And I like your name. Can you tell that, Cornico? It's fun to say. And Freestyle. And Clavicus. Hey, Clavicus, I haven't seen you before. Are you new? If so, welcome. Mist Imp, hello. Stephanie. Gurgi. I do not recognize your name either, Gurgi, but welcome. Image of Betrayal, Morning, Otter Mama. Yeah, I'm going to paint it all different animal colors and patterns, I think, Margaret. I mean, you could do it a couple ways, right? You could do it like spirity and do it all ghosty and stuff and glowy. And that would be kind of fun. Maybe we'll do one side one way and the other side the other way and see which way we like. Sweet. Sweet. Yay, I'm glad that you finally got a stream, Magnetic Gumby. It's good to see you. You're bright-tailed and bushy-eyed. Bushy-eyed is, well, I guess if I had bushier eyebrows, I too could be bushy-eyed. Well, welcome, Clavicus. I am Anne. I've worked for Reaper for over 17 years now, and in 15 of those, I was working in Denton, Texas, making the Master Series paint line and being their staff painter. So then I moved to the West Coast to be with my boyfriend, and Reaper was nice enough to keep me on and let me do these streams to teach people how to paint. So that's my shtick. I do it every morning during the week. I'm here at 11:30 Central. So welcome.
Oh, Turner new looks to be new as well, Anne.
Oh, great. Sweet. Welcome, Turner. Well, I just gave you my intro, so now you know who I am.
All kinds of new people.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you like the Giant Ranger. Yeah, I've put her aside for the moment, but I may actually go back to her just because I've gotten so much done on her now. So it's like, it's kind of almost a, shame to stop when you've gotten so much progress in on the mini, right? I think I'm going to paint this entire Spirit Beast, though. I kind of feel like it. I'm feeling the Spirit Beast. We'll see. Oh, Everlina, I do that periodically. Actually, I dial it down is what I do. I dial it down. I dialed it from coffee to black tea. To pu'er tea to black tea, and now I'm at a black and green kind of blend. Oolong and green kind of deal. And good morning, Jedi Jared. Buy plenty of aspirin. Well, if you wean yourself off of it like I did, guys, if you just gradually graduate backwards to smaller amounts of caffeine over the course of a couple weeks, you don't get headaches. That's why I do it that way. It gives your body time to adjust to the lowering amount of caffeine, and as long as you get a little, you're fine. So, highly recommend. Would do again. Alrighty. Oh no! Three Reaper orders waiting in Chicago. Chicago has imprisoned your Reaper orders. Oh, good. First time watcher. Oh, alright, cool. Long time Reaper fan. Awesome, Greggy. Well, welcome. Yes, normally I'm under caffeinated, but today I'm actually feeling pretty good, despite a early morning dog incident, because my elderly dog has those moments.
Oh man, look at that Image gifted a sub to Turner.
Image, you're so nice. Thank you. Now you have a sub, Turner, and I've got no excuse not to watch.
That is pretty awesome.
Also, thank you for supporting us and going toward our sub goal, because we're trying a new thing, and once we get a certain number of subs, we're going to do an AMA and giveaways with the AMA. So,
correct.
Yeah, and I started thinking about my Anne's paint set, like, the giveaway yesterday. I was like, I'm actually going to pick a bunch of weird colors that I like, but that the rest of you guys might not have, as opposed to the starter paint set from Reaper, which I designed, which is kind of my go-to, like, standard colors. Hey, Dan, it's good to see you. Dan Goodchild, in the room, in the house. Yeah, well, yeah, it's a weird hour for some people, right? But it hits lunchtime for a lot of our East Coasters and Midwesters, so that's why we kind of like it. All right. I think resubs do count for my giveaway, Casmania. We've been allowing resubs, gifted subs, all that stuff, to count for my AMA. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, yes. Happy times hi Rathfor. Hi Belzacious. Oh, all right, Kaz. Yay. 13 months. Uh-oh. And Shadow
That's
Reagan.
impressive, Casmania.
Yeah, I know Shadow Raven. Isn't that annoying about Prime? Because I like to use my Prime sub too, but I forget to use it all the time because it's you can't use it until it's up, and then you forget. Hey, Flaner, it's good to see you. Oh, Kazmania, wow, look at those gifted subs from Kaz. Dang.
Thank you, Kaz. That's awesome.
That's beautiful. That's really well. I'm gonna have to hurry up and figure out what my paint set is. Then, aren't I? We're gonna get to 50 pretty quick, or 60, whatever we decide to do. We need to figure out. I need to figure out what it is, and then we need to figure out the costs and logistics behind it to make sure that the sub goal will pay for the giveaway. That's what we essentially need to do. Plus, still paying Justin
Yes.
and I to do this. So, all right. Oh, you can set up Prime to renew now. That's nice. Wow, that's new, or at least it's new to me. Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool, Mathophile. Thank you for letting us know that. Hey, Real Chibi. And Mivwin. Nice. Yeah, yeah. Ah, I see. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's get into... Hey, Valandar. Good to see you. And Chewy Boots, everybody. All right, well, let's get into Spirit Beast, because I'm looking forward to Spirit Beast. Let's see here. Let us deactivate intro so that if I want to talk to you guys later, I can. And then let's get down to minicam. All right, there we go. And let me make sure that my chat is up here so that I can see you guys loud and clear. And then let's get into focus, figure out what we want to do. All right, so we have two options for Spirit Beast, really, the way that I think about him or her. I guess it's a her, probably a her. No affiliation of girl or guy is indicated, so it could be either, and you can just you may choose whichever you wish. I'm just gonna make sure that these horns fit on here. Yeah, they do. Oh, Spirit Beast is pretty majestic, actually. It's so cute. Okay, so obviously we could do the head as like a wolf or coyote or fox or dog or anything we wanted to. Spirit Beast is kind of a cool, just kind of like, modded together kind of animal. I was thinking actually that I wanted to do a fox for the top part. And then, hey, Nomad Zeke. And then I thought I wanted to do some leopard spots over here because there's nothing that says that it has to be only 2 or 3 animals. It could be more. So I thought I would do some leopard spots on the smooth part here. And then the bottom part can be a deer or a horse. I haven't decided quite yet. It'd be kind of cool to make it like a bay horse where you have the black socks and then maybe some white tips. That could be fun. Pretty much an animal like this, when it comes down to it, is when it's a hodgepodge animal, just begs you to do all sorts of really cool stuff to it. So, yeah, it's neat. I mean, you could use it for some sort of spirit. Obviously, Spirit Beast is supposed to be some sort of spirit animal or, maybe a holy animal or some sort of elven creature. Or you could sub it and make up a stat line for it of almost anything, right? I'm going to kill his mold line that I just noticed, actually. Take the head off so I can get that mold line a little bit easier. Just using the very tip of my X-Acto to kind of scrape away at that mold line. Doesn't take too much on the bones material. Just a little bit of gentle pressure. You don't want to gouge it. The nice thing about it being a furry model is that if you do accidentally leave a knife line, chances are you can get it to read as fur. So that's nice. But yeah, I love these sort of creatures. Like, I grew up reading all sorts of folklore and mythology, and, there's all sorts of heraldic animals this would be close to. Things that you see, even a gargoyle type of animal if you wanted to. But I think, I'm trying to think about colors here, because we could go 2 ways. We could go natural or unnatural with it. And if you were doing like an elven kind of creature, like an elven cat, they have all those elven creature variants. Which it kind of makes sense, right? It kind of reads as a forest guardian. Then you could go with greens. Paint the entire thing in shades of like green for the forest, greens and browns. If you were going for a spirit thing, you could do it in any sort of bright spectral color, like a greenish blue or a pale blue, or even a blue gray or a blue purple. Any of that would work. in which case you're just pretty much painting the same color over the animal, and you're putting maybe patterns on with the fur and everything. I'm just going to take this mold line off real quick. Let's see. Russian unicorn or spirit elk. Yeah, this probably works. Yeah, well, I'm going to ignore the actual real-world reference, guys, because I consider this to be more fun if I don't have a reference. I mean, if you want to paint it, a Studio Ghibli or whatever that is, like that it's kind of like that thing, that's up to you, but I prefer to go a little bit off the path with something like this that's so obviously fantastical and could be anything. I think we should be allowed to exercise our creativity. I just want to get these little, since I actually like this model, I'm just trying to get the mold lines off of this fur, so you guys can consider this a mold line removal tutorial.
Out of curiosity, Miss
Yeah.
Ann, are you a Studio Ghibli fan?
I actually don't even know who they are, which is great because then I have no preconceptions for this model.
Okay. I bet you'd recognize it if I told you a couple of things. It's Studio Ghibli is the studio, but the actual director who's known for all of it, whose name is slipping me right now.
Uh-huh.
He did stuff like Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, I know Princess Mononoke, but that's the only one of his things that I know.
Hayao Miyazaki. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Valandar.
Yeah.
You have that one. You have Kiki's Delivery Service. You have Spirited Away, which is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
You have Howl's Moving Castle. What else?
Yeah, it does feel Mononoke-like, so you could do it spirity. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I haven't seen any of it. I actually stopped watching anime after Cowboy Bebop just because I stopped dating or hanging out with people who watched anime. And I'm not a big media consumer. Like, honestly.
Oh, I thought you liked anime. I don't know.
Oh, I do. I just have not ever kept up with it. Like, obviously,
okay.
I watched the entire Bebop, and I've seen all of Robotech back in the day, and Rama 1/2, and older anime I'm familiar with, and Mononoke. But
and you've seen a lot more than I have. I'm gonna be honest with you. I like pretty much exclusively only like a handful of anime, including like Samurai Champloo.
Yeah, I've seen some Samurai Champloo also.
I like Cowboy Bebop well enough.
Yeah, Bebop is just
like,
good.
I don't watch any more than that, and I like all of the Studio Ghibli stuff. It's the flavor is just always so nice. It feels like I don't know. It feels like the Japanese Disney to me. So
yeah.
To me, I get the same feeling watching Spirited Away or Kiki's Delivery Service that I get when watching like The Mermaid or The Little Mermaid, right?
Right, yeah, because it seems like it's heavily based on like myths and folklore. It has that kind of magical underpinning.
Yeah, homey magical feel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but
Princess
otherwise,
Mononoke, however, is still like that. That reminds me of like just plain old anime because it's very it's much more not rough. Rough's not the word for it. It's and it's not necessarily explicit either. But it's
it gets a little dark.
It is. It's much darker than his other stuff, I think.
Right. Yeah. All right. I'm just sitting here using the edge of my knife. I find that knife work to remove mold lines on bones is really like hobby knife is the only way. I don't use files on bones or attempt to use other things to do it. I just tend to use a very gentle pressure with kind of a semi-dull hobby knife so that I don't inadvertently gouge the surface and gently scrape away at the mold lines until I get them where I want them. And then we want to take this mold line off his rump because mold lines are going to make us feel sad about him later if we leave them on. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, so back to kind of color schemes, because when I'm cleaning the figure is when I'm thinking about color schemes. Yeah, you know what? I saw one of the Ghost in the Shells. I don't remember, ages ago. But yeah, I mean, when I watch anime, it's okay. I was very impressed with Cowboy Bebop, its complexity and its character growth arcs, and just generally really thought that it was an excellent series. But yeah, I mean, I don't make a lot of time for TV either. I'll tell you, I have watched more TV since starting to date David than I had in the previous 2 decades, easily. Like, that is how little media I consume. Like, I'm very selective about my media usually. And I also have a real aversion to violence or torture or any sort of things like that. Like, it really turns me off if it's extreme. So that discounts a lot of modern film for me. So yeah, I am out of the loop. Out of the loop. Like, we've been watching Picard, and I actually had to stop watching it because episode 5 was too graphic for me. Which is a shame, because I love Patrick Stewart, and it's a really good series so far. But, yeah, I am one of those people who I never watched a lot of TV, so I was never desensitized to on-screen violence, and I don't really want to be desensitized to it. So, I don't enjoy it. I actually have watched Kill Bill, Saib, and this is the dealio. I can watch violence if it's very cartoon or obviously not real. So, like, I can watch Aliens and enjoy it, even though there's graphic scenes in that. But it's sci-fi,
Okay.
so it's not real.
It's over the top.
Yes, and Kill Bill is very much comic book. And all the violence is very overdone, and it's obviously not real, right? It's not done very realistically. So, I can watch it. And actually enjoyed Kill Bill. I actually really liked that movie that set of movies. But yeah, just like scenes that are very realistic and upsetting, like, oh gosh. I guess the one that stands out for me, because this is when I realized I had a problem with it, was when we went to see, in college, my friends and I went to see The Fugitive, and I actually almost walked out of the theater because of the opening scene where he's like essentially killing her and she's trying to call 911 and is like dying. I couldn't handle it. Like, I realized at that moment that I didn't want to watch such stuff, and my friends had to make me stay, and I enjoyed the film after that. But that sort of scenes, there's enough bad stuff in the world, and I don't need to be watching it for my entertainment, is essentially my philosophy. So I much prefer these days like documentaries or lightweight comedies, or like science fiction. I can still watch most science fiction unless it gets very graphic, like the Picard episode did. Yeah, otherwise I tend to go more light, or honestly, I just read, or I paint, or I write. You know, I'm very much more a creator than a consumer, I guess, is what it comes down to. I would rather be actively doing something and creating something than watching somebody else's content. That's always been a preference of mine, I guess. Probably just the way I was raised, because there wasn't a big emphasis on TV in our household when I was a kid. Like, we could watch it, but I was more often reading a book or writing a story or drawing or doing something like that. So I guess it got me into that. Yeah, but it's real cheap yarn. This is the problem, though, okay? So if I'm actively watching it, I'm not doing something else. I'm not painting a miniature. I'm not working on my Patreon. I'm not working on my novel. I'm not, there's all these things that for me are very, very high value and very attractive that I could be working on and creating that I won't be able to work on if I watch that thing. So for me, it's a constant choice of how is my time? It's the time, what is it? Time value assessment? What is damn it, what do they call it when, like the choice to do one thing costs a certain amount, like in time and effort, and the choice to do another thing also? That sort of thing. I can't remember what it is, Justin, but it's essentially you always lose something by choosing to do a thing. You lose something else because if you're doing one thing, then you're not doing the other thing. And I'm always
opportunity cost?
Yes, opportunity cost. Thank you.
Don't credit me for that. That's Sandercleese in chat.
Oh, thanks, Sandercleese. I missed it. But yeah, opportunity cost. So I am always because I'm a creator, I'm a very creative person, and because I love to do that, I'm always conscious of the opportunity cost of consuming media. So I don't do Facebook very much. I don't do, Instagram very much. Like I don't watch TV very much. So all of that sort of thing is really real for me. But I'll make a note. I mean, I can always ask Justin about the Ghibli stuff if I forget and I'm looking for. Yeah, real cheapy. Pretty much it's only like sick days, or if I just set myself, like I've really trying to set myself up for the weekend to just do stuff I enjoy. But even then I enjoy painting or I enjoy writing, you know, just as much. And I also, now it's the thing that we're out here. I mean, David and I both very much enjoy hiking and getting outside, so we're even less likely to sit in front of the TV. We'd rather go to an art gallery or hike or do something like that. You know, we're going to the beach this weekend just for a quick walk. Obviously, a lot of that is curtailed right now because of COVID, but it's just the same, right? Just the same. So somebody asked, let me go scroll back up because I missed your thing. Nathophile. What do I listen to when I paint outside of live streams? Honestly, it's usually it's either a podcast or an audiobook that's always nonfiction. I actually find that I get very tired or fatigued when I listen to fiction on audio. It's really weird. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm using my imagination so much. But otherwise, I really love music. Usually, if I'm painting, I'm actually doing music and not audiobook or not podcast. So I love, I have a bunch of playlists. I love 80s pop. I love actually hokey 70s folk and pop music from when my dad used to play it a lot when I was growing up. So a lot of old school 70s rock. And I have some modern bands that I like I like Oh Wonder, and I just put together, I don't know, I listen to a lot of different genres as far as music goes. There's, if I just hear a song somewhere that I like, I'll just pick it up. So I also have some soundtracks, like the Skyrim soundtrack. I like some video game soundtracks, so that works too. The Golden Girls are making a comeback. It's like crazy. Like I was watching them when I was a kid. Right, yeah, Twitch is, I do watch stuff on Twitch, actually, because I watch Overwatch League, Saragnon. So, because I do like my video game. That's the one media that I've kind of gotten addicted to, because I love to play the computer game, and so I like to watch the competitive players and how good they are. So sometimes David and I will listen to Overwatch League games when we are painting. All right. C is for cookie. Trasherama, that explains so much. The Golden Girls served as a template for the ideal adventuring party. That is just kind of silly. But I could see it in the 80s, right? There was just some weird stuff that went on in the 80s, so I'll just chalk that up to weird stuff. All right, so how are we going to paint this guy, guys? Are we going to do natural animal fur tones, or are we going to do an unnatural fur tone and use natural animal patterns? So natural or unnatural fur tones, fur colors? That is my question to you as I finish cleaning up this last mold line. Unnatural? So you don't want to know how to paint a realistic fox or a realistic leopard. You want to go crazy and learn how to paint their patterns, but with an unrealistic background color. All right, we can do that. All right, so unnatural. Then my next question is, are we going like blues and greens for like a spirit thing, or are we doing like greens and golds and browns like an elven animal? Hugger, naturalistic animal colors are actually pretty easy because they've got some triads for that. Like for fox fur, if I was doing this guy as a fox, I would actually use Reaper's red hair triad because it gives you a very similar color set. And then for like golden leopard fur, the first triad in core, that is the light browns. So if you go from leather brown to tanned leather to amber gold to golden blonde, that actually gives you a very realistic lion or leopard fur color. Like it's been nuked. Thanks, Twisted Oma. Now I'm sad. Seeing, man, we're getting lots of different. This is really split between Elven and Sylvan, and Elven and Spirit. Interesting. Well, let me see what I've got in my paint drawer. Let's see here. I have a lot of spirity colors in my paint drawer that are jumping out at me right now. So, like, I've got Leany Green, sorry, Tianzia Jade, and Mint Green, and Phantom Glow, all of which make a triad, by the way. If you didn't know, there is your Phantom-y triad, right there. Iggy's Spell Scale, there's a couple of different ways you can do Fox Fur, but you can just use our red hair triad from Reaper, which is 90, 240, 9241, 9242, and 9243. That's the red hair triad. It's auburn shadow, a carrot top red, and I forget what the highlight is called. Orange highlight, maybe. But Runic Glow, well, that would be purple, Kariniko. That would be a totally different, like, way to go. Like, that would be kind of crazy, if you asked me. But we could do that. We could mix other colors in. I just have to figure out how to utilize it. Oh, Iggy, you didn't think of using the red hair triad for foxes? Yeah, it works really well. You can also use, let's see here. See, I even have a handsome fox up in case you guys wanted to do it. But you could also use volcanic orange if you want more of a saturated orange. You could use volcanic orange, and that's from Bones, and also sunrise orange. You want to mix a little white in with it because the sunrise is good for some of these really more saturated face tones, but it's just a little bit orangey. So if you add a tiny bit of linen white, for example, to it, you get that nice that color up around his eyebrows. You definitely want more orange. There are brown foxes, so you always want to use, like, look for a photo reference and then try to find colors that match. But in general, foxes are quite orange, so you are going to get some very saturated orange tones. So Ruddy Brown plus Marigold isn't going to do it. It's going to give you a very brown fox. For these brown tones, for those brown tones in there, sure, absolutely. But when you're getting up into these more intensified oranges around the eye and around the top of the head and the ears and against the sides here, you definitely want to use some actual orange. Rust Brown is a little bit too red, non-zero. You can use it as a basis, but then highlight it with orange. Around the eyes, that's very similar to Rust Red, but I would still put a little orange into it. So it's like, you kind of want to get out your bottles and kind of look. You are, with most animals, you are going to want to mix, right? But because it's natural fur tones, it's actually a bunch of different colors being layered in this fur that gives it a certain effect. But starting with it, looking at it, saying, okay, this is really orange, it's not really brown, finding the picture. And also the good thing that pictures are really good for is showing you the pattern, right? Because when I first started painting foxes, I just made like a straight white line, and sometimes that works. Some foxes do just have a straight, like, white line that goes back. But I find that if I do this pattern on something where it's got kind of a rounded white area here, and then it's got this little dark stripe right at the back of this little front of the muzzle, and then it goes back with white here, I find that looks actually more like a fox when I paint it onto a model. So things like that. Digital artist, Study the Greats, Mamicator. Really, honestly, study people who are successful in the field that you are trying to go into. Even if they're traditional painters, maybe especially traditional painters, like Wayne Reynolds, who does the covers for Pathfinder books. Find a style that you like that seems to be embraced by the community. Or if you can't find anybody that paints in your style, try to analyze why those other styles work. Is it because they've got punchy colors or extreme action poses, or the details really sharp, or what makes that artist's style work? And then if you don't like their style and your style's different, try to at least incorporate elements of that into your style. You got to grow as an artist anyway. But you got to study what's getting published and what people want. Like, if you ever want to work for Reaper doing concept art, you got to study Talon's stuff, because Ron's entire character aesthetic for Reaper is based on Talon's artwork. So you got to look at Izzy's stuff, because if you don't draw like Izzy, Ron isn't that interested. He really isn't. He wants somebody who can draw like Izzy. So Izzy and Wayne Reynolds are two people who have done a lot of concept art for Reaper. So that sort of thing. Alrighty. Yeah, Zenako, and welcome if you're new. So the black caps are for different lines than the white cap. The white caps are our original line, at least, and this may change. We may go to all white at some point. We talked about going to all black. Reaper has talked about changing this up, but right now, white caps are from the core line, which is the first line that I created, and then the black caps are from either the Bones line, which will have bones on the bottle, or from some of our sponsored, our licensed lines, like Pathfinder. So that's the difference, is what you're dealing with. Let's see here. I'm going to grab those colors, maybe some clear magenta. Maybe we'll mess around with this stuff. I can show you guys weird special effects that happen. That'll be fun. But yeah, I mean... And the other thing to realize also, if you're a digital artist, is that you may be able to break in easier or make more money in a different market, because game companies are notoriously short on cash. Mamicator or Mamicator. I'm not sure how to say your name. And Gray Caps is the old HD line. Bakaroja. What are some of the differences between Reaper paints and Vallejo? Oh, Mathophile. Very different beasts. I used to paint with Vallejo before I created MSP. So let's just get down and start with Phantom Glow on this guy while I talk. All right. So what it comes down to then is the choice of the paint base. And the base, when I talk about a base, is essentially the resins that are giving the base its body. Resins are things like acrylic or latex. You know, you've all heard about acrylic latex paint, right? And there's also like a synthetic vinyl type of base. And they've even used like styrene in the past. They're always experimenting with different resins and each of those resins gives the paint a different kind of a different base that it starts, which is why it's called the base. So like acrylic is very transparent, but it also is extremely durable. So it doesn't rub off the model as much. So when you get more acrylic in there, your paint has more adhesion, but it also doesn't have as great coverage. Whereas a vinyl is on the opposite end of the line. And that's, Vallejo used to use all vinyl. They actually were a cell animation paint company in the beginning. So they did paints to be used for painting film cells for animated movies. And what you need with that is you need coverage. And it doesn't matter, you're not looking for adhesion, right? You're looking for coverage. And so vinyl is very good at coverage, but it is very stringy and easy to rub off, especially if you thin it. So it also, there's various other qualities that goes with each of these. And then latex is somewhere in the middle. So that's why acrylic latex is used for house paint, because it's very durable, but the latex gives it a little bit more coverage. And that's why wall paint also tends to be very pale. One of the reasons is because they can load white into it and give it more coverage to cover for the fact that the acrylic is very low coverage. So essentially, the difference between Vallejo and Reaper is the fact that Reaper is more of a heavy acrylic body, so it doesn't have as good coverage as Vallejo. It's also not as thick and goopy, but it sticks better. And it also, the thing about acrylic paint and using it for miniatures is that you really need, you want good coverage for your first coat, but after that, if you're trying to get better, all you do is thinned applications, right? After your base coat, you're thinning for a wash, or you're thinning for highlights, or you're always thinning your paint after that. So it never made sense to me to go for a high coverage paint that broke down when you added water, because that's what happens with those heavy bodied paints, is they don't stay in solution very well usually. So for me, I wanted to go with a paint that maybe covered a little bit less, but when you thin it, it doesn't separate. And I thin my paint like crazy, because I often am doing glazes where I'm 2-to-1 water to paint. And normally any paint would fall out of solution for that, but Master Series doesn't. So if you are working with thinned applications, a lot of washing, glazing, layering, things like that, if you're blending with layering or trying to learn, then MSP is going to be take a lot less work to get it to the level you need, essentially. But they are very different paints. Like, there is definitely a learning curve if you go from Vallejo to MSP. You're probably going to like how fluid it is, but then you're going to be frustrated with the coverage right away, because you're just not going to be able to slap it on and get a thick opaque layer right away. MSP varies by coverage more in the pigments that we use, more like an artist paint would. So like any light color is going to have really good coverage in MSP. But some of the dark colors are quite transparent, but you can use that. This is what my stream is all about, essentially, is why transparency is not a bad thing, and how to use it, right? So this is a very complicated answer. Hopefully it's not turning you off, but it really is a fundamental chemical difference between MSP and Vallejo. And also there's the fact that this paint was created by me, a miniature painter, and the Vallejo paint line was not. So you may notice that we have a bit more functionality for fantasy painting and sci-fi, and less historical colors, because Vallejo originally targeted historical painters. Okay. Woo. Pathfinder gave me, actually non-zero value, Paizo gave us swatches, which were all based on art in their books. So then I took those swatches and essentially constructed them as a paint color. Let's see. Yeah, Izzy's great. Pro Paint, Bill Robertson, was the old line before MSP. Yeah, thanks, Zenako. Yeah, I mean, I spent ages learning this stuff. I have an art background, a 2D art background, so I learned about paint chemistry in order to do MSP better. It was something that I was just looking up studies online, figuring out why paints covered better if they had this base or that base, doing a lot of reading about surfactants and pigments and how things work. It wasn't like I could have mixed colors with not knowing that, but it informed me a lot better about why the paint acts like it does, which is really one of the things that I'm super interested in. So, does paint thinner? No, paint thinner does not. Paint thinner is a solvent methophile. So you want to use water for thinning our paint. It is an acrylic water-based paint. Never ever use solvents that'll make it glob up into cottage cheese. Won't work. Yes, I'm a paint nerd, so then you'll get along there, Mathophile, because I am totally a paint nerd. All right, cool. Well, then we're down to the not having all the questions. Good. And I instinctually added more water to my paint. I'm actually going to go back. So, okay. So this is actually a good time to do an example. So if I wanted a more solid coverage out the gate, then I actually would probably start with mint green instead of phantom glow. And the reason is you can see that one is notably different in lightness. So what this means is that this paint is going to have more white in it. And because it does have more white in it, it's going to cover better because white is the highest coverage pigment. So any light color is going to be a higher coverage paint than a dark color. So if I use this, and if I thin it the exact same, amount that I thinned the Phantom Glow, boop, I'm going to get better coverage. So you can work with that, because especially if you're doing washes, you want to start with a lighter base coat. I probably should pop this guy. Do I even have a base for this? This is a good question. Where did the base go? And do I have one? Let me see if I do have I should have the base in here. Oh yeah, there it is. Sorry, I really do need to base this model and not get paint all over my fingers, do as I say, not as I do. And then I can stick it on a handle so that it'll be easier to handle. So for those of you who are new to painting in the current day and age, you want I use pill bottles, or I use old film canisters. I still have some of those. Or I use like blocks, to mount figures. Wooden blocks are easy. It's always poster tack on top of the block. You can just smoosh your base down into it, and then you can have the model easy to paint without getting your fingers all over it, which is nice. So now I just have to make this guy's little feet peg in appropriately. And since it's bendy, it can take a little bit of pressure. So let's see here. Looks like I've got a space. There we go. So I fit the first 2 feet in. Then I can get that last foot in. There. And that makes him sit. Oh, he looks really nice now. Actually, that's a nice pose. Kind of on his little mound of rock. Oh, good, Crispies. Well, we're going to talk. Yeah, the universal solvent. Right, Dan? Dan Goodchild. Great one. Yeah, I mean, Mathophile, usually, I obviously use a lot of Reaper, but it's totally fair to Just use a little bit of everything. In fact, you should use a little bit of everything. I usually tell people at the beginning, try different lines, buy like one bottle, or a couple of colors from each line, and experiment. I'm going to use Apigap for this. It's a little bit thinner. And that way, what you do then is you really get a feel for the qualities of the different paints. And usually, eventually, you like kind of settle on one line you use mostly, and then maybe you keep like maybe you like some of Vallejo's reds a little bit better and they cover a little better, so you keep those, but you like Master Series for for the skin tones, and maybe you like Scale 75 for some of their colors. Stuff like that. And play around, get some P3, get some scale. You may find also that the paint line that you like the most changes as you learn new techniques. I think that Master Series really excels at things like layering. So when you get to the point where you're using a lot of layering to do blending or textures, then you may find that you start switching more to Master Series because you have to like thin it a lot less and it stays in solution better. Whereas when if you switch over and your style becomes mostly wet blending, you may decide that you like Vallejo or Scale 75 because it's thicker and goopier, and so it works for blending. Some people will do it that way. So it's all up to you what you do. I think I'm going to hold off putting the horns on until I have the head figured out. We can say, but Anne did it. Why doesn't it work for me? Yeah. Anne did it. Why can't I do it? Hi, Crispies. You're a little late. It's okay. I was a little bit late too. Okay, so let's get this paint on the model now that I've been derailed and, talked about paint chemistry and just generally been a gadabout for the day. It is only Thursday. Usually this would be like Distracted Friday, but instead it's Distracted Thursday. So with bones, if you want to use a thinned base coat like I do, I would rather get 2 thinned coats and get a nice smooth base coat. But if you want the paint to stick, then usually I recommend that you wash the model. So what I do with these guys after I get them out of their packaging is I put them in a plastic mixing bowl filled with hot water and a bit of dish soap, and I sploosh them around for, about a minute, and then take them out, rinse them off very thoroughly, and let them dry on a paper towel or a dish towel overnight. And then I find I have very little problems with the paint sticking. So we'll start light with this guy. Light and glowy. So we're starting with mint green, which is 9263, which is, by the way, a great highlight color for blue. If you mix it into blue, it makes a very pretty, warm highlight. So it's a great tool for making your blue pop a bit more, because sometimes when you try to highlight blue with more light blue, it can just kind of look kind of boring and go kind of flat as the white takes down the intensity of the blue pigment. But if you highlight with something with green and white in it, it'll make it look a little more interesting, and because it's warm, it'll look like it pops a little bit more, like it's a little bit more lively. So we're painting a teal fox today, I guess is what we're doing. Just getting a nice coat on there. I'm going to get all of his longer fur and paint it this color. Yes, it does have horns and wings. You are right. Yeah, it's Spirit Beast Dogfather. Actually, I have its little tag. Let me get its little tag. It's a fun little critter to use for a whole bunch of stuff. There we go. We'll actually have his tag sitting here because I can. Yeah, mint green is fun. A lot of people look past the pastels and they kind of don't see what they're for, Heather, but I think that for as highlight colors, they're really intended as colors to use for highlighting, but this one makes a pretty good spirity, ghosty base as well. We have a lot of greens like this that are kind of a blue-green color, intense color, and it is because you can utilize them for far more than you think. And I'm using a big flat to base coat this because with base coating, it's really the least exciting portion of painting, right? So it's just it's the portion you want to get done so that you can work on making it look better. So my usual maxim is use the brush that's big enough to cover the area fast, but still allows you to stay in the lines, hit the details without, too much smooching around. So this brush, because I don't have to be very precise, and I could, let my blue-green, trail over if I want, or I could paint this whole animal with this color. So a big flat will cover big flat spaces very quickly. Oh, I see a little thread of plastic I forgot to take off. There we go. There we go. A little better. Crispies, I just use green stuff. You gotta look too in advance to kind of see. This is a really flush fit. When I pushed the horns in earlier, I took the horns and pushed them in to test the fit, and to see how it looked also. But generally, I'm pushing the horns in. I'm gonna test the fit, and if I find that that they fit pretty well, or in this case, it doesn't matter so much if they're not perfectly flush, although there they are. So they sit really quite flush on the animal. They're not, there's a little seam line, but not much. But in this case, you've got fur coming up against horn. So you could get away with a tiny gap because it's two different types of surfaces, right? The one thing you might do is use some green stuff to make a little fur texture here around the base of the horn, because there is a gap just aligned there, and it would probably look more natural if there was fur coming up onto that. But that's entirely up to you. Otherwise, it has a nice flush fit. But I use green because you can just paint directly over green stuff. And also green stuff lets me get texture. Like I said, if I was going to fill that gap, I wouldn't just fill the gap. I would actually do some texture up there, some fur texture. Now for the wings, again, you're dealing with a totally different texture. And what you want to do here is, again, you want to check the fit. And what I noticed right away is that I've got a little bit too much give. And if I can figure out why that is, and possibly it's usually with these, it's often that it's too thick, maybe at the base, that it doesn't have quite enough area to sink in. I'll actually take a side cutters and just clip off part of this so that it fits better. So I'll clip off part of my attachment point here until I get a good fit. So, but for this guy, I mean, he definitely, the only reason I'm not assembling him right now with these horns is because I have already tested that they're a great fit, so I don't need to worry about them so much. And two, that I want to be able to easily paint all parts of the head. So my main criteria for if I'm going to paint something first or put it together first is, if I put it together, can I still reach everything? And I just find the horns a little awkward, especially if I'm trying to hit the fur on the back of the neck here. They would be in the way. So if something's going to be in the way, it's much more stress relieving to, paint it separate. And like I said, with green stuff, you can just paint right over it afterwards. With most epoxy putties, you can just paint right over it. You can put a brush on primer on if you really want. But it's not as much of a pain as you think it is. Yeah, I'll do, when we get to the wings, I will do wings. So possibly tomorrow or Monday, whenever I get there. I suspect that today will mostly be figuring out our fur texture here. Let's see, what time is it? Yeah, oh yeah. We've taken up a lot of time. All right, so let's see here. I want to show you guys a magic trick. A secret magic trick that happens when you take phthalo green and mix it with magenta. If you've ever taken my color theory class, you know this trick. But what it comes down to is that green and pink make blue. Let's see if I can get it to do it, because I know that the Tianzia isn't entirely phthalo, so it may not work. But it's a weird thing that happens when you mix these two colors, and that's why I decided to go with that Runic Glow snarky comment, because I'm like, oh, I bet I could get some blues out of this. So let's see if it works. If you have clear phthalo green from ReaperCon, you can totally do this trick with clear magenta. Let's see. Oh yeah, yep. Here we go. It's a little bit off because it's got a little bit of other color. It's really those two specific pigments that work together. Get a little bit more magenta in there. There we go. Blue. Ta-da! Blue. And it's only that that kind of gray because there's extra pigments in here that are not phthalo green. So, ta-da, magic. Yeah, there are a couple other colors that also create special effects when you mix them together. But this is my favorite. All right, so if we wanted to, we could take some of our, say, Tianzia, and we could do a gradient for shading. It's a pretty color. Yeah, exactly, methophile. Well, that's the difference, though. Remember, color wheels are printed with printer's inks. They're not pigments. This is the big disconnect in our minds, in the art mind, about what, pigments work differently than that. Pigments work differently from printer's inks, which are dyes, and printer's inks work differently from computer monitors, which are light. And all of them act differently. So you kind of have to keep in mind that it depends on the medium you're working in. If you're a digital painter versus if you're painting with pigment versus if you're trying to utilize like calligraphy inks. Most of the inks that are sold nowadays, though, are actually not dyes. They're different. They've started to use acrylic inks, which are really just paint in a different base. So then if we want to do the jade color to get some shading going on, what we can do is we can work this blue in, right? And some magenta. So if I want to do that, I can put some water in there. And we can work some blue into him because we've got it. Not really. I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to make perfect sense to you, Matthephile. It's just specifically magenta is a cold red and this is a cold green, and that's what they do. In most cases, you will not get a weird reaction like this. Like if you try to mix normal red pigments that are not purpley with green, you're going to get a brown color just like you think you would. So I just like to show people the magic trick because it is so weird and because you will run into it sometimes if you aren't conscious of it. If you mix paint. So, I mean, otherwise your color wheel works fine. It's just limited. Because it's not dealing with the pigments. I mean, I actually gave a color wheel. I have a Patreon. I should bring that up now. And I actually did a color wheel that showed you where MSP paints would fit in each section last year. I have, around the 1st of January, I made a post that listed all my content for last year, too. So it should be easy to find. So if you go around there, if you are a patron or want to try it out. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, though, don't worry about it. I mean, red and yellow are usually going to make you orange. It's just, the type of orange is going to be different depending on what else is in the paint. Remember that most of the miniature paints that you're using are not a single pigment. So for mixing, it's more difficult than you'd think. So remember, there are a few lines that do have pure pigment colors, and one of them is Master Series, which is why I was just using clear magenta. And one of them is Chimera Colors, which has a single pigment paint line. Chimera spelled Kimera. But I mean, Reaper Master Series were doing single pigment paints before those guys came around. So magenta is only magenta. When you see a clear in the title, and they're all together in our line, so it's 9094 through 9099. Clear means, good for mixing, pretty much. Single pigment clear base. Doesn't cover, but if you're looking to mix a bright purple, mixing clear blue and clear magenta will give you a very, very bright purple. I'm just going to put some magenta under here too, under his chin, because I can. And as I mix it into the green, I'll start to get that blue color. But the more magenta I mix in, the more purpley it's going to be. Let's go up to his eyeball. Thanks for the link there, Z-Will. Yeah, I'm glad you like it if he paints. I tried hard to make it pretty appropriate, pretty applicable. Let's see, I need a little bit thicker blue. I thinned it. because these colors don't cover great, it means that if you want them to be darker, you need to leave them thicker. So I want his little eyeball to come out here. Ah! Give him an eye. But yeah, the Patreon is my main source of income now since I had moved out here to be with my guy. So I appreciate all of you so much who are helping me out by supporting me on there. And I hope you will find the content interesting. I do a lot of things on for my $5 tier on MSP Paint and different colors and how they're usable. Or helping people to use them. So I'm going to give them a little dark nose. Got my dark eyes, so I always fill in my eyes dark so that they have a dark rim around them. Most animal eyes are like that. And let's see, let's refer to our picture of the fox because I want to... So if you look at Mr. Fox, he's got dark around his eyes and he has a little black button nose because he's adorable. And he has a dark line around his mouth. He also has a big dark space here in his ears between the fur. So we can go ahead and put that in blue as well. Okay, have fun, Zero. So we can block in, use a little bit of this thinned blue to block in that ear. And the other reason that this all works together, even though this blue color is kind of odd, is that... a little bit of this color is mixed into all of these colors because this is the same pigments as this, and then there's this mixed into this. So if you want two unusual colors to go together or you want to create a blend between them, mix a little bit of one into the other. There's our little mouth. His chin got very dark under there, so I'll probably have to bring that up a bit. But I wanted to block in my shadows. I could always make my shadows lighter if I don't like them. And I don't mind working with really thin paint for this because it'll almost act as a painted on wash. That's very applied very specifically. So it'll outline the different texture of the hairs. Well, let me adjust my seating here. Hey there, Paul. Oakley dokley. Let's see here. Let's just put some magenta over the top of our crest here and see how that works. Since people wanted me to do all sorts of crazy colors on this model, I live to serve. But I don't want to put them full strength because I don't want them to be punk rock spirit beast. So that said, let us just try to glaze some magenta over the screen and see what happens. Like, is it cool? It makes this kind of reddish up there, but it's not bad. And I bet if we glazed a little bit of this green, also, we get that kind of blue transition between the two. Get kind of a blend there from green to blue to purple. Real subtle. It's not like jump up and smack you in the face obvious, but I kind of like subtle stuff, so I don't mind having a little bit of subtle color touches in my models. Here we go. Let's see. We'll maybe do that around his eyes too. That's really heavy though. I needed to thin that down. Oh, redstone. Yep. Yeah, it is non-zero. It's the redstone triad is cleverly hidden, but it is great for weathered skin. So if you want a sunburned or windburned effect, that is where you should go. I also use redstone as a base for tiefling skin all the time, but it works just as well for historic Vikings when you want that dark reddish base of somebody who's been out in the sun and wind constantly throughout their life. A little bit of shadow there. Darker color on top of the nose because we're doing a fox. And now I think I'm going to put the white in a bit. I've already put a shadow in there, but I'm going to at least do the markings on his face. Oh, really? GVD? Justin, to make a note of that, or email questions at Reaper Mini and just let them know, and they'll send that along to the appropriate person to correct it.
Copy.
Thanks for letting us know that we have a wrong triad swatch. It does happen. All right, let's get some white on here and actually get his little mouth blocked in. And I won't use pure white straight up the. I'll use white with just a little bit of my base color in it, or a little bit maybe of the blue, because I want to be able to highlight it still. And if I just do it in pure white, there's no highlight that's brighter. So I'll mix a little bit of my blue in, I think. That way I create a near white color that still works with everything. And then when I come back in and do some highlights in pure white, they will show up. I'm going to add a little water. Just like everything, I add water to my paint all the time. It makes the paint come better off of your brush. Makes it smoother. Allows you to control it better. There are all sorts of reasons to thin your paint. If you're trying to get better and having trouble doing so, try thinning your paint more. I obviously, you can see this is colored water almost, and I thin my paint quite a bit. In fact, a lot of the paint I'm working with today is a lot thicker than I would work with normally. Alright, so we want this, it's a little bit dark, so I'm going to just use this straight up then. Just testing what color. My mint green is so light already, I can't go too dark with my white. So I probably want to put some darker green up there around his muzzle. There we go. So this is a mixture of my weird blue and my white. And I know I want kind of a dark stripe in there. And then I want the white to come back out around the mouth. If I'm looking at my Fox reference photo. There you go. There he is. So he's got that little bit of white there. And then he's got a bigger white kind of that goes around his mouth. And then it comes out onto his chest. So there's our white around the mouth. There's our white around the muzzle. And then I'll bring it out. Probably bring it out to about there. And I won't necessarily take it all the way down the front since I've already started shading the throat, but I might. It's all up in the air at this point. We could also do a little bit of lighter fur around the eyes because Mr. Fox has that. So even when you're painting a spirit fox, it helps to look at a picture of the actual animal and see how the colors are laid out. So we'll do a little bit of lighter color around the eye. Maybe a little bit down here. Yeah, left planer. Yeah, it's nice that the Discord helps us. Spectral white. What about spectral white, Dogfather? That's my least favorite ice cream because that is the favorite ice cream of my brother and my mom when I was a kid, and I didn't like it that much, but they always wanted it, so I had to eat a ton of it. And to this day, I am less than thrilled with. Can't eat mint ice cream really. I'm gonna put a dark shadow over here. Got kind of a dark shadow coming down here. Maybe I'll grab some clear magenta to make it a little blue at the bottom tip. Make it darker with the way those colors interact. There. So that's got kind of a fun color gradient. Actually, Dogfather Spectral has purple. It's definitely a purple, and it isn't magenta. It's a magenta and blue mixture with white. It would, I don't think I would use it as a highlight here. I'm trying to keep my magenta to the shadows, not highlights. I'm going to go up probably with white plus mint green for my highlights. So I would not probably use Spectral as a highlight because then I'm going from purple shadows to green midtones to purple highlights. It would look very odd. And test it out. Your mileage may vary. For me, it sounds not quite the direction I'd want to go. I want to keep, especially because I'm trying to keep the pattern straight, right? Like I want it to look like a fox still. So the more color confusion I have on the model, the harder it's going to be to make this look like a fox. So I want to be a little careful about that. I want some more water in that. When you do highlights, you want to thin your paint quite a bit. Yes, maggot white. It's green and yellow. So it would be perfectly usable if you didn't want to just mix in clear white or pure white, sorry. Maggot green, I'm trying to remember, 9282 maybe? Or maggot white, sorry. It was one of the Kickstarter triad. It's next to Nightmare Black, and I think it is 282, 9282. Let's see, I want a little bit of, I think I want more white over here. I think I want to make all of his mane over here white. And of course, you can decide to depart from the natural fox pattern all you want. You don't need to stick to it. I just want to, because I want my different animal parts to still look like different animals, even if they're a different color than the animal would normally be. Yeah, maggot white. So when you're translating color scheme in this manner, is there some things to keep in mind when selecting the color scheme, or did you already cover that? Not really, Down Zero. I just asked people what they wanted, and they all said, Phantom, kind of thing. So I just went with the greens. I knew I was going with these, and then somebody yelled out Runic Glow, because I've been using it a lot lately. So I just decided to go for it, because I knew that if I used Runic Glow, which is magenta and white, with just a tad of other stuff in it, and I used clear magenta, I could mix this great blue, which would then give me a darker color to use, because I'm looking for contrast. So if I just use these, it would be very one-dimensional, and it would be pretty boring, to be, absolutely honest. And then, but using these then gives me some contrasting colors to work with. And then I've got this nice dark blue, because you always want to be able to have a light, medium, and dark color on your mini if it fits with the scheme, or if it can fit with the scheme, because contrast is what makes the details stand out. So that's why I'm going with white for the edges of his little cheek mane here, because I'm going to go with the dark underneath it, and that's going to help all of that stand out. Contrast is how details stand out, dark next to light. So that's pretty much, for making a color scheme, that's almost always what I'm looking at. Is just make sure I've got a dark, make sure I've got a light, make sure the colors, work together. Like in this case, since people wanted spectral, so I knew I was going to be working with brighter greens, I knew that I needed to work with almost all bright colors. And the only exception is this muted color that I mixed from these two bright colors, so it still works. I'm basically looking to be able to have contrast. Like I want, you have to have contrast to paint miniatures. They're too small to paint without contrast. You'll just lose everything. So like when I was painting limited palette stuff, I would usually pick a muted red, a muted yellow, and a muted blue, and I'd try to make sure that at least one of those was quite light and one of them was quite dark, so that I would have the flexibility. Because I don't like to use pure black, so as a mixer. Just getting some of this white in there. Probably going to come back up and hit the top of his eye to bring it out. He's really cute. I'm pretty happy at how he's coming around. But I mean, that's, yeah, so non-zero, if you're going to make up a color scheme, first you have to ask yourself, well, and I cover this, if you go to if you go to the Patreon, I have a free piece of content called the Random Color Scheme Generator. And it will, like, you really do start, just the first step of that is to choose your first color. Really, that's how I start. I start with, what color am I starting with? What is my main color that I'm going to use? In this case, it was this. It was phthalo green plus white. It was Phantom Glow. So right away, that sets up a chain of events where there are only certain other colors I could pick that will look good. So I know I'm going to have something that's pretty saturated, that's pretty bright, and that means that I can't go with like really muted or grayed out colors unless I'm using like say a mix of that. Then I could get away with it a little bit. You know, it's there's a green, so I'm probably not going to go with blue as my secondary color because this is a very bluish green and it won't work great. I am able to use blue in shadows, but that's a little bit different than making it a main color. You know, I use a very defined process. When I've got my first color, I can easily scale out from there to figure out what my next colors are. And actually, because my process is so defined, is why I made that random encounter color scheme encounter table, because I wanted to force myself to break it up and do something different every once in a while. So that color table allows me to get different, you know, to consider different combos, like not always going complementary or not always going green, orange, purple, right? I can maybe kind of like branch out a bit. So now I'm going to add some darker greens in here. Get my shadows in. I like this so far. I think I am gonna knock down some of this lighter fur, I think, just with a washer glaze. Oh, Pendrake, thank you for the sub. Oh yeah, link to the Patreon. Patreon.com/paintingbig. Yeah, the random color scheme encounter table is free content. I just thought it would be super fun, and I wanted something to help me get out of my color ruts. Because I was definitely in a color rut. I was in a purple and gold color rut for a very long time. And now apparently I'm in a purple and blue color rut. So I wanted my random color scheme encounter table. So what I'm doing here is I'm painting a thinned layer of this Phantom Glow over my light palest greens. It's going to make, because I'm applying it as a wash, I didn't thin it too much. So essentially it's going to pool in the shadows. It's going to bring out that fur texture a little bit more, and everything will be less flat. Because if you look, this is a very flat color, like it's just the base coat painted on. When I paint this dark green over it and I let it pool a little bit, then it gives you more texture. It does shift the color, but I can come back with this and highlight with it now. There. Kind of like him, except that I see a mold line on his ear and I have to remedy that. Sounds like purple was the problem. Purple is never a problem, Pendrake. Bite your tongue. What are you saying to me? You should know I'm the purple goddess. I'm not getting rid of purple. There. Now, the nice thing about bones, the fact that you don't need primer to paint, to paint them, is that, when you scrape a little bit off, you can just paint right over it. And see if you got your mold line off. I need a little bit of green. Boop, boop. So I think I'm going to paint the back of his ear dark too. Maybe magenta. Sweet. So maybe I'll make magenta ears just for fun. Can give him a little pink on his ears. Nobody will care. Nobody will notice. And they're kind of hidden underneath his antlers once those go on anyway. His antlers might turn purple at this point. I'm not sure. Not sure. He is a spirit beast. He can be whatever color he wants. Putting some shading with the jade color, which of course now is mixing with my magenta, which is still wet, and making a blue color. I gotta remember that back here on that side I did a fade. Now, in that random color scheme generator where I'm talking about muted colors, there, if you're on my Patreon, look for a $5 tier handout PDF I did talking about saturation. I think I did it 2 months ago. Let's see, magenta, that's right. And it's going to tell you what I mean by saturation and muted. And essentially, your basic thing is if you want to mute a color, the easiest way to mute a color is to add gray or to add white or to add black. It's going to mute it pretty effectively. You can also add the complement to a color to mute it. So technically, I'm adding complementary colors here. This is green, this is red. I'm making blue, but it's a very muted blue. It's very gray, right? So there's a difference there. So when the color wheel generator tells you, like, okay, so do this color scheme, but make one of your colors, use muted colors instead of bright colors. That's what it's talking about. And when it talks about tertiary colors, it's talking about tertiary colors are the colors between the colors on the color wheel. So like tertiary color would be yellow orange or green blue or purplish red, red violet. So when you see those directions on the color random color scheme generator, that is what they are talking about. He's cute. He is cute. I like his face. His face is coming along. Pretty adorbs, and it still says Fox. Slide a color to tertiary. So essentially, if you've got red and green and it says slide a color to tertiary, you would either slide your red to red violet or red orange, or you would slide your green to green yellow or blue green. So tertiary colors are between the colors. And you could choose which. I gave you a lot of leeway because that way you can experiment and see what works better. Like, cause sometimes it's like certain color schemes will definitely work better than others. Let's see, what's an example? I think for my paint along level, we're working on this Dragonkin, for example. And I used the random color scheme generator on him. And I started out with blue. And it wanted me to use, I think it wanted me to use like a muted primary triad, but slide one color toward tertiary. So I ended up with essentially, instead of blue and red, I ended up with blue and red purple. Or maybe I think I had an analogous actually. So blue and purple, and then I was supposed to slide it. So I slid toward red. And the reason that I slid toward red is if I slid my purple toward blue, these would be too close together. So whenever you are asked to slide a color toward tertiary, if you want the scheme to work, slide it farther away from your main color. Slide the colors farther apart on the color wheel. This will help keep you out of trouble. And I will say that, up until, unfortunately, that model got me into my current obsession with blue and purple. I didn't realize it, but now I've got blue and purple. I've got blue and purple. I've got, for our Gloomhaven mini, I've got blue and purple. It's just, yeah, I seem to be now stuck in a totally different purple color scheme. So the random color scheme generator worked the first time, but then now everything I'm painting looks like blue and purple. Even this one has blue and purple in it, but you guys have saved me by the addition of green. You've saved me from myself. I suppose we're going a little long. I guess I should wrap this up, huh? What time is it? Oh, yeah, it's almost 11. So, Justin...
Yeah, you're at 1:20.
Yeah. All right, well, I think he's looking very foxy, considering that he's not fox-colored at all. Yeah, purple and teal. I mean, I was one of the original members of the cult of purple and teal, Jeffrey, because Jennifer Haley is one of my best buds, and she really originated it, like, as far as popular mini painter life. Came from the Imps, I think, the Illinois Mini Painting Society. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with this. It's looking very foxy, despite the fact that it's not fox colored at all. And so really it's the patterns that you have to focus on to try to get it to look appropriate. But yeah, so I actually really like this guy, how he's starting to turn out, which is great. So next time, tomorrow, we will do some patterns. Like I want to have some leopard spots back here. So we'll figure out if we want this part darker or lighter, if we want it to go magenta, more purpley back here, or blue, or if we want to go darker green, or even like near white. We could do near white with leopard spots. That would be fun. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do pale. So yeah, but you guys see how if you pay attention to natural world references, you can still carry off the appearance of a fox, but without fox colors. So I hope you guys had fun. I'm going to do leopard spots in our...
I got a raid for us.
Oh, okay. Who are we raiding? Here, I'll go back
Jimmy.
to this. We're Jimmying. All right, cool. That sounds good to me. What's he painting today?
Let's see here. I can't really tell. Like, I don't think it's a
Well,
Reaper
that's
product.
a bad sign. Well, cool. All right, well, guys, thank you for tuning in. As always, I had a lot of fun. And tune back in for more Spirit Beast tomorrow, and we'll play around with some pale colors with leopard spots, and I'll show you guys how I do those, because there's definitely a trick to those also. And we'll just keep working on weird animal patterns in colors that should never actually naturally be a thing. Have a good time, and thanks, guys. See you guys all later.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Keep being awesome. And don't forget today we have Painting Platinum is back at 3, and then we have Reaper Live at 6 o'clock. So hopefully we will see you guys then. Have a great day, guys.